In one of the largest sponsorship deals in global sport in 2022, Spotify will become Barcelona's main commercial partner from the start of the 22-23 season. The Swedish audio streaming service will replace Rakuten as the front-of-shirt sponsor for Barca's men's team and will replace Stanley of Black & Decker fame on the front of the women's shirts, and electronics firm Beko as Barca's training kit sponsor. On top of all of that, and most newsworthy of all, Barcelona's iconic Camp Nou stadium will be rebranded from July 2022 as Spotify Camp Nou, until summer 2026 at least. Between now and then, the so-called Espai project, at a cost of 1.5 billion euros, will see the famous venue upgraded and remodelled into what is claiming to be the biggest sports innovation hub in the world. But what's in a name? Or to be more precise, what is the economic value to Spotify of the naming rights part of their Barcelona deal? The Camp Nou is already well established the world over for being a footballing cathedral since it opened 65 years ago. So does anyone really think that appending Spotify to the name will actually lead people to using it? Well, according to business journals in Spain, the naming element is worth 5 million euros per year. But looked at another way, Spotify are paying little to nothing for the naming rights part of a 4-year package that will earn Barcelona 280 million euros or 70 million euros per year. Rakuten's existing shirt deal was worth at least 55 million euros a year, plus bonuses, when it began, although was amended down in the midst of the financial crisis caused by the COVID pandemic. Stanley's shirt deal for the women has been worth 3.5 million euros a year, and Beko's training kit was worth 19 million a year when it started, but was also reduced thanks to COVID. So these three items of Barcelona's inventory should be worth upwards of 77.5 million euros per year in non-COVID times. And yet Spotify is getting them all and the naming rights for 70 million euros. So is that a bargain or a sign of a cash-strapped club accepting any big number in a financial storm? Or is it a conundrum in which the true value of stadium naming rights in football remain murky? Well, perhaps it's all three at once. Dan Gaunt is the CEO of Turnstile, a company that advises major brands and clubs on sums they should be spending or receiving when doing sponsorship deals, including naming rights deals, calculated objectively. Turnstile break down every component part of a deal and assign a financial value to it. They break this down into three categories: direct benefits, exposure, and intellectual property, or IP. Direct benefits include anything included in the contract that has a real-world price tag. So let's pretend that a company called Imaginary Limited want to buy the naming rights to Mid-Table FC's stadium in the Premier League. Part of their contract will include match tickets or maybe a hospitality box to entertain clients, some signed merchandise, a few meet and greet days with players, some digital ads on the pitch side hoardings, and a set number of social media posts to Mid-Table FC's 6 million followers across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. This package, or something like it, might be worth a few £100,000 a season. The exposure element is the value of any Imaginary Limited branding that is purposefully positioned to be picked up as part of a television broadcast, or in industry parlance, it's a signage buy. This might include Imaginary Limited's name and logo on the stand, and some presence on the post-match interview backdrop. A calculation is then made depending on the number of seconds of TV airtime these get across a season, multiplied by the eyeballs seeing them. It likely wouldn't be long per game, perhaps mere seconds. Turnstile use a global viewing database and a signage by rate to work out how these seconds translate to cash. At Mid-Table FC, it might be hundreds of thousands of pounds a season, and at a huge club, low millions. The IP element is a figure that takes into account two things: a club's global fan base and how that compares to similar clubs with existing naming rights deals in similar markets. Again, these sums won't be enormous. Gaunt recently calculated how much a firm might pay to be Chelsea's next main front-of-shirt sponsor for their men's team. He arrived at a figure of £43.4 million, comprised of £2.3 million in direct benefits, £22.2 million in exposure, the shirt is visible almost all the time, and £18.8 million of IP, benchmarking Chelsea as a huge club against other big club shirt deals. But stadium naming rights in English football are not common. Take the 30 largest football grounds by capacity, for example, and 23 of them have no sponsor. From Wembley to Old Trafford to Anfield, St James's Park, Villa Park, Goodison Park, Bramall Lane, Molineux, Ewood Park and Carrow Road, to name just 10 across the spectrum. Of the 7 that do, they are each exceptional in their own way. Arsenal's Emirates Stadium was a new build that's always had that name and a long-term deal worth single-digit millions as part of a much larger package, where the big money is for the shirt. The same applies to Brighton's Amex Stadium at lower sums. 3 stadiums are named for companies affiliated to the owners' companies or entities in the owner's home nation. Stoke's Bet365 Stadium, Leicester City's King Power, and Manchester City's Etihad. And the last 2, Bolton's University of Bolton Stadium, previously the Reebok, and the Coventry Building Society Arena, are both hyper-local and low-earning tie-ups that are as much about community relations as anything else. Dan Gaunt says English clubs can be very wary over naming deals because fans are protective. So in reverse order, the 5 most lucrative football stadium naming deals in the world are Besiktas's Vodafone Park, named after a huge refurb in 2013 at £5 million a year. Fenerbahce's Ülker Stadium, renamed in 2015 in a 10-year, £6 million a year deal. Bayern Munich's Allianz Arena, new in 2005 in a 30-year, £6.4 million a year deal. Atletico Madrid's Wanda Stadium, new in 2017 in a deal worth £8.4 million a year. And in first place, Manchester City's Etihad Stadium, in a deal starting in 2011 that internal club documents show was worth £15 million a year by 2013. Now at that time, 9 years ago, the Etihad in fact commanded the most lucrative naming rights deal in the whole of global sport. On an annual basis, ahead of the New York Mets Citi Field, the Dallas Cowboys AT&T Stadium, the MetLife Stadium of the New York Giants and Jets, and the San Francisco 49ers Levi's Stadium. Now it is worth noting that objective valuations and pure return on investment are not always major considerations in these matters, according to Ricardo Fort, a veteran dealmaker. Fort has worked with brands including Coca-Cola and Visa, and governing bodies from FIFA and the IOC to UEFA and the NFL, plus teams from football, basketball, baseball and Formula One. He argues that there is a cultural difference to naming rights between North America, home to the most evolved sports business economy in the world, and pretty much everywhere else, especially Europe. High-value, long-term naming rights deals in the USA, especially on new-build venues, are common. But, he says, it's virtually impossible to envisage lucrative naming rights at many stadiums already rich in history, whether Anfield in Liverpool, the San Siro in Milan, or the Maracana in Rio. On the other hand, he says, brands might invest in stadium naming not for return on investment per se, but for one of 5 other strategic reasons. The first is achieving visibility in a competitive marketplace by making a prominent long-term investment. In 2019, for example, Coca-Cola signed a 10-year naming rights deal for a new 17,000-seater sport, music and events arena in Dubai, in a Middle East and North African region with fierce competition for soft drink sales. This also signposted investment in that region, fostering goodwill. The second is spending on naming a venue to effectively pay a political tax, giving you access via sport to powerful local people and conversations. The third reason is putting your brand on a stadium to give you access to content and a platform for your content or messaging. The Spotify and Camp Nou deal gives Spotify access to sports content and allows Spotify to market audio content to millions of Barcelona fans. A fourth reason might be a particular practical benefit to your company from a sponsorship tie-up. In the run-up to the Football World Cup in South Africa in 2010, for example, Emirates signed up with FIFA as a top-tier partner, and officials inside both organisations later spoke about the deal helping Emirates as an airline secure valuable landing slots at that country's airports before the World Cup. Other reasons might be more vague. You might attach your name to a venue through vanity or, alternatively, as a means of establishing legitimacy with the public. Probably the prime example of the latter in global sport in recent times is the Crypto.com cryptocurrency trading app paying $700 million over 20 years to take over the naming rights of the venue known as the Staples Center in Los Angeles. But we are not likely to see a football stadium anywhere in the world commanding that kind of FIFA naming rights anytime soon, not even at the Spotify Camp Nou. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.